Tom Terrific, TB12, Tom Brady, finally has been approved as now an owner of the Las Vegas Raiders. The first pro football player, I believe, ever, Pete.
It's not ever.
What's that?
It's not ever. There's one or two that after they got out of the NFL got involved, but probably not somebody at this young age, John. And they didn't get paid like Tom back in the day either. But I think there's one or two that have actually been there with him.
In fact, I guess I misspoke in a way, Pete, because technically George Halas, with the Decatur Staleys or Stanleys, whatever they were, that became the Chicago Bears, he was a player and an owner of that franchise, and then his family inherited it and so forth. But let's take a look and listen to Tom Brady as he walks through the doors as an owner of, not the owner, but as an owner with the owner who still has the worst haircut in the business. That would be Mark Davis.
Yeah. Tom Terrific. This is their Raider facility. This is pretty special. Just big son of a gun. That's pretty cool.
Yep. And what a great athlete. It's wonderful to see him still involved, not just on the announcing side, but certainly that big contract helped pay for a lot of that ownership stake that he just got, Pete.
And who he dragged with him was the old defensive end Seymour came there with him. He got 0.5%. Tom got 5%. Seymour got 0.5%. So pretty cool. I mean, I love the fact that they stuck it out together. They both decided they wanted to get in there, and they got through the approval process. So I think that whole thing for Tom Brady is pretty cool. Speaking of Tom Brady, let's jump to the sports, John. In the NFL, and I say that, Tom Brady, obviously a quarterback, one of the greatest, if not the greatest quarterbacks of all time, the GOAT and all those things. And I'm one of those believers. I mean, I think the guy was special beyond words. And he didn't always have – I'll give you this one, John. Outside of Gronk, how many people could name you a running back or even a receiver other than maybe the 1 year with Randy Moss or, whatever it was? It's one of those things where it was really just this special guy, this great quarterback who distributed the ball to a lot of folks, had a great offensive line, but, it wasn't like he had the best receivers in the NFL playing with the New England Patriots. That was not the case. And some of these other guys have special receivers. Tom would have one or two once in a while, but he did a lot of this through his abilities and why he was so good. So I wanted to run this one by you. Early look at the MVP. Who should be the MVP if we stopped right now, not playoffs, nothing? And I got a real short list, so I'll go through it, John, to ask you, what do you think? So Lamar Jackson, this guy is absolutely incredible. He was the MVP last year. What has he done this year? Well, he's got 10 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 1,500 yards passing, and 400 yards plus running the football. I would say that he might be right there again. Then you got Josh Allen. This is pretty good. Josh Allen's got 10 touchdowns. He's got 0 interceptions. Now, that's pretty amazing because we know who he is. He likes to throw the ball. He likes to run with the ball. He's got almost 200 yards rushing. He's got 1,100 passing. I still think you got to give it to Lamar. Lamar's been doing an amazing job, but Josh Allen also has the number 1 QBR, so he's another one. Then you throw in Joe Burrow. Problem for Joe is he's got no defense. They can't stop anybody. But nobody can stop Cincinnati either. So the only reason that they're able to be basically competitive is he is throwing the ball like he's never thrown it before this year. He's got 12 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. The guy, when you look at his numbers, he's number 2 in QBR, by the way. And then you've got C.J. Stroud. You got Baker Mayfield, have done a lot of special things. Baker's probably thrown too many interceptions versus the others. But here's my guy. I'm going to go outside of all these quarterbacks. How about Derrick Henry? The Derrick Henry that I see playing right now at 30 years old, John, looks better than the Derrick Henry that came out of Alabama and he was running the football when he was 22, 23 years old. The guy leads the NFL in yards per game with 117. He's averaging 6 yards a carry right now in the NFL. And if you've seen him at all, John, and some of the things that he does when he's not playing, he's got a special chef. Everything is looked at very closely as far as calories and fats. This guy is 6'3" or taller and 250 pounds of basically just muscle. And he is a freak show. And he's got speed still at 30 years old. So all of this stuff about running backs can't play into their 30s, that's all a bunch of crap. This guy, he's the reason, in my opinion, that Lamar Jackson is doing as well as he's doing, because now Lamar doesn't have to run all the time when it's there. He can still give the ball to Derrick Henry, and that puts that offense into a very, very interesting spot, because you and I both know, as former linebackers in the NFL, you got a running back who can run, you got to respect him. You got to stop him. You stop him first, and that actually opens up everything behind you. And that's why Lamar Jackson's got some great numbers, but I think a lot of the reason is because Derrick Henry can run the ball.
Well, Pete, I'm going to tout one of our guys who, like C.J. Stroud last year, lit it up as a rookie. I'm going to say Jaden Daniels. Because you and I were all over this guy in the draft. We both said we would take him number one over Caleb Williams and over Drake May and all these other guys. All he's done is 6 TDs, Pete, only 2 interceptions. And by the way, he's run for 4 touchdowns as well. Now, his QBR, 74, roughly 73.7, very strong QBR. For a rookie to lead a nothing team like Washington as he has is impressive as all heck. And you haven't heard him complaining about not having great targets. We've heard other quarterbacks doing that. But now we've got Jaden Daniels, and I think this kid at 4-2 through 6 games, Pete, is certainly in the conversation, at least for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, I love him too. The only reason I didn't say him, John, because I really do love everything he has done. And he's a guy who's a lot like Lamar Jackson. He can run, and he can do it by the run, but he's got a great arm, and he's very smart about how he throws the football. He's not throwing interceptions. That's the problem with some of these guys. And some years we've seen Josh Allen or some of these guys throw too many interceptions along with all those touchdowns. Those interceptions kill you. They really do. It gives the other offense too many opportunities, which is why oftentimes they don't get through. You know, it's really interesting, John. Neither one of us talked about Pat Mahomes just now. Anyway, let's go to the next one. We got college football. Number 5, Georgia's playing number 1, Texas. Now, that's going to be a heck of an SEC game right there. I think that one's going to be one of the better games over the weekend. And you've got Carson Beck, the quarterback for Georgia, who's been absolutely on fire. You've got Quinn Ewers and Arch Manning, who both, it doesn't matter which one of them it is, John. That's the luxury that they've got down there right now in Texas. It doesn't matter which guy starts or which guy plays. They're both equally unbelievably good. So that's going to be something that we need to watch, but that's going to be a football game to watch. You've got Bama and Tennessee. I'll tell you, Milroe is a stud. We both know that. That quarterback for Alabama, he's great at running. He's great at throwing the football. By the way, how about this? He's got 23 combined touchdowns running and passing so far this year.
It's amazing.
That's amazing. Dylan Sampson is the running back at Tennessee, John. He's the guy who fuels that whole thing. He's got 15 touchdowns running the football and over 700 yards running the rock. Tennessee needs to do that because they got to chew up the clock and keep Alabama's offense off the field. What do you think about those 2 games? Do you agree that those are probably the best 2 of the weekend? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And by the way, any game with Texas this year is going to be a must-watch game. Yeah. When you see them, when you see that stadium going crazy, that is, it's got to be one of the most interesting stories in all of college football, Pete. How Sarkisian has turned that thing into just a powerhouse. And it's also kind of funny to see Matthew McConaughey wandering out there every once in a while and going, all right. But let me throw you the game that I know you wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
But it's an unranked team versus a number 16 Indiana team. Indiana, Nebraska.
Yeah.
Because Indiana has looked amazing. And playing against Nebraska at home, Pete. Yeah. It's at Indiana, I believe. I think this is going to be a very interesting game. And Nebraska deserves the accolades that they've got for playing tough smash mouth football again with the black shirts and so forth. But Indiana's kind of special this year. And I like their chances against Nebraska, obviously.
Well, they're 6-0. They were the first team that actually qualified for bowls because they were the first team to reach those 6 games and be 6-0. Others have now come over the last week or so, so obviously that's all going to change. But I'll tell you, you're right. That's going to be a heck of a game. I think the black shirts are pretty interesting to watch. They're 5-1. It's not like they're somebody that's, the redheaded stepchild or anything. And yet, this could be a heck of a game. Everything in Indiana has impressed me this year, and Illinois. Quite honestly, the quarterback for Illinois, that guy's a gunslinger too, John. So the Big Ten's a lot different than it's been in the past. I think Michigan is good, not great. I think Ohio State is pretty daggone good, but they aren't great because they make some mistakes here and there, and they're not blowing people out like they usually do. And that was part of the reason Oregon, was in the position to actually win the game. And unfortunately for Ohio State, the guys slid too late. They ran out the clock. It was all gone. But that was a heck of a game last week. That was a lot of fun. I'll tell you what, there's one other game I'll even throw out to you too, a ranked one. You got BYU. They're at home in Lavelle Edwards Field, and they're going to be playing against Oklahoma State. Now, that one should be fun. That's a Big 12 game. Oklahoma State came in this year pretty daggone happy about their team and the players and everything else. BYU's undefeated. And they've got a very interesting quarterback. The dynamic is very interesting. He's a runner, he's a passer, and he's not Mormon, John. He's actually a Jewish kid. And it's really interesting because they had a whole feature on this on ESPN last week. And they have embraced him, and he's embraced them. And it's really amazing what they've been able to do on the field, but also, the interesting side of the off the field, because I don't know that has happened before at BYU, to be honest with you. But either way, they did a great feature on it, and the kid is running and gunning and doing a great job, and that's why they're undefeated, right?
Yeah, and Pete, one of the last times a non-Mormon their quarterback was probably McMahon.
Yeah, that's a few years ago.
Yeah, it was a few years ago. It might be like 40 years ago.